Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Smart Money Show. I'm one of your co-hosts, as usual, Ali Suleiman, and I'm joined by my other co-host, Naman Akhtar, as usual. How are you, bro?
I'm all good. Summer's right around the corner, so just waiting. You know, we get little droplets of sun here and there, but that full summer, I can feel it coming.
I feel like you say this every episode.
You know, it's UK weather for you. I know I sound like I'm 50 or something talking about the weather, but yeah, trust me, like because summer signifies like okay, you're away from your exams now, and that's why I've just been chasing it mentally, to be honest. But what about yourself? How's things?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, of course, at the time of recording, for eager listeners, I'm a Man United fan. So I woke up this morning, I was a little bit, I see our guest shaking his head, which we'll get into. But I'm a little bit, when I woke up, I was a bit upset. Went to sleep last night too late. But it is what it is, used to it. But I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Luckily, we're not a sports podcast. But Naman, throwing it back to you, who are we joined by today?
Well, our guest today is someone who's he's a current analyst at Blackrock within the fixed income team, and he's actually someone that we got into contact through one of my friends. His name's Lam Nugent, so shout out to him. But so today we're joined by Esmond Afranie, and he's a current analyst as I said, at Blackrock within the European fixed income team. Esmond, he graduated from the University of Warwick, and you'd normally assume that he's probably done finance or econ, but he's actually a biomedical sciences graduate. So a lot to talk about on that end as well in the coming episode. But beyond that, he demonstrated his commitment to like social impact by founding Prosper Warwick during his university years, which is a student-led initiative focused on improving access and an opportunity for underrepresented groups. And then beyond that, he's also partaken in numerous different insight days, insight weeks, spring weeks, internships, which we're all going to speak about, and a lot of information there for us and our viewers. And yeah, so from science to bond markets, his journey is just a brilliant example of how like curiosity, resilience can shape your way, regardless of your background, into a career in financial services. And we will just be discussing his journey throughout this episode. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome on Esmond onto the show. How's things going, bro?
Good man, good. Thanks for the introduction. Amazing. Thanks a lot for having me on today, guys. I appreciate it. Like you said, sad after United yesterday, but thankfully it's not a sports podcast as you said.
Yeah, I mean, I got to laugh, man. Otherwise, I'll be crying. But I think I'm going to take this opportunity to jump onto the first question of the episode, if that's okay. So we always like to kick off very broad. We think it adds a very good foundation to any guest's journey. So why can't you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what were you like growing up?
Sure. My upbringing. So great question. So I was born and raised in Hackney, East London. Um, yeah, just from there, went university in East London as well, Cardinal Pole, sixth form in East London, and then following that, went to University of Warwick, and then now I'm working. How was I growing up? It's a great question as well. I don't know, you'd have to probably ask my friends what they think. They'll probably give you a more accurate representation. But from my side, I thought I was a good kid growing up, bright kid. Listen in class, listen in school. Love football, love sports as you do. But yeah, like that's about it for me.
That's great to hear, especially the football, man. It's like I know Ali said we're not a sports podcast, but it's just ringing in my head ever since yesterday. But then to give you a bit more direct question, then, so what initially drew you to studying biomedical sciences at Warwick then?
Oh, good question. I think initially throughout my whole like I guess academic sort of journey and when I was in school, it's just almost been what I've been good at. So for like my A levels, I done biology, maths, and history, which are like three subjects from like completely different atmospheres. But it was literally just the top three GCSEs that I got, I chose for A level sort of thing. So the same thing sort of applied to biomedical science. I just got best at biology, and I thought I did like really like my teachers as well, and the way they taught biology made it really enjoyable. And I thought, okay, cool, this like will be a cool sort of thing to go into for university. I wasn't thinking too far ahead, to be honest. I wasn't planning out my career or anything. At that moment, it was literally what I enjoyed and what I was good at, and sort of applied that in that situation there.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I love it. And this is why I'm very excited to go into your journey a little bit more, because a lot of people who come from non-finance degrees, I mean, the industry has changed a lot to accommodate it, and you're proof of that. But still, we know a few people right in the mind that come from a STEM background and they're a little bit, or non-finance background, and they're a little bit like, oh, can I even break into the industry? And of course, Esmond, you're proof of that. But I want to ask, did your time at Warwick help clarify what you didn't want to do as a career, or what you didn't want to pursue as a career?
I think so. I think at Warwick and even before Warwick, so I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but from like the ages of 16 to 18, I was part of a mentoring group called Badu Mentoring Group. So what it was basically just young black students from East London basically go there, get mentored. Um, and the group I was a part of, the first year I was a mentee, and then the second year I was one of the lead mentors. So it's more like a sort of peer mentoring sort of experience where you sort of mentor your peers, which is quite awkward and quite weird when you're mentoring someone the same age as you. But that was sort of the dynamic there, which it helps you to grow a lot and gain a lot of exposure and experience. So they like brought in loads of speakers to speak to us, and different people from different industries came in. And linking that back to Warwick, the same thing for Warwick. There was like loads of different speakers and different experiences there. So you can sort of gauge what you're leaning towards, sort of gauge what you might not prefer. Obviously, it's hard to know like from first year what you want to do as a career, definitely. But I think there's opportunities there where you can sort of hear what people are saying, see what you like to do and what you're good at, and sort of see if that applies in the situation. So yeah, I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even for myself, it was like in my first year, I knew I wanted to work in finance, but we all know like finance could mean anything. Like there's so many different jobs within finance, but then yeah, just jumping in between, and then yeah, so first year was for me personally like something that really, I guess, naturally pigeonholing myself towards like a career that I'm more inclined towards. But then, so you did study, of course, as I highlighted, biomedical sciences at uni. So do you think there was any transferable skills that you got from your degree which could be applied to your current role or a role in finance in
Um,
general?
yeah, I think not just from my degree, but from like most degrees in general, like you get so many skills. I think that's one of the key parts of university, the amount of skills that you develop. So even it's like key things like people might overlook it, just like the resilience to complete your assignments on time when you're under pressure. That's sort of like building it up there for when you have assignments at work. Just I guess nitpicking your assignments as well to make sure that the details there, that sort of attention to detail is a key thing that applies to it. So some things that people may overlook in their assignments are like very crucial and they do apply to the working world because you don't want to be like sending out comments with mistakes basically or sending out presentations with mistakes or you don't want to like be submitting your if you've been asked to complete a task you don't want to submit that late you want to get there on time so those sort of key things that some people may think are it's just an assignment or it's just like a bit of a piece of work, which I was thinking in first year as well. Don't get me confused, but I guess once you start working, you sort of realizing how those little skills have added up over time.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great way to end that first section, actually. And as I said at the top of the episode, we like to start with that because I think it provides color to the picture we're going to really dive into later on in the episode and starting now, to be honest. So the next section is your transition to finance, which we have touched on briefly. But when did you first seriously start considering a career in finance? What was that moment or pivot that you remember?
See, the use of the word seriously is what's making me think a lot here. Um, I would say maybe I've probably around like my first year once I started like doing or gaining insight into the spring weeks or what's going on in the spring weeks, sort of going to the spring weeks, I'd say, because I guess that's when you gain your real sort of real world experience, real life experience in the industry and see what actually happens to an extent as well, because then it's just really like the tip of the iceberg. And the more like work experience you do, the deeper you get into like the iceberg of finance. But I'd say probably at the top of it, like around the spring weeks time, is when I thought, okay, like this is looking like a career for me, sort of thing. Prior to it, it was mainly just trying to gain an insight, trying to understand what's really going on. But during and maybe even post spring weeks, I think that's when I really sort of said, okay, how could I knuckle down and build a career here?
Yeah, and to be honest, in the UK, we're lucky in that sense because I'm pretty sure in the States there's no such thing as spring weeks. You're gonna have to correct me.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely like work experience and stuff, but in the US, networking is so
Yeah.
important. It's something we got to touch on later on in another episode.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and as you said, the spring weeks are generally something that's like a strong game changer because they're very like, some are more division specific, but then you get that nice overview to see like what your options are.
A career change for me. I mean, you've just come off spring weeks. Is there something that you learned from a spring week that changed your idea of where you want to go into team wise?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like it was more convenient because I knew it was either going to be markets or banking, and then both my spring weeks were kind of like one was centered towards markets, one was more general, but then pushed towards banking, and then it did make me realize, okay, I beezed away. I know there's crazy hours ahead, but fingers crossed I survive them. But anyways, so Esmond, then you mentioned that you did the tutoring as well, but then what do you think was the first thing that you directly did towards your finance career then?
The first thing I directly did was probably even prior to spring weeks because I was like very interested and trying to understand what was going on. It was probably like insight days, so like 1 day insight days or virtual insight days. Um, it's just, I guess, like going back to one of the first questions you asked, how I've been as a child or how was I growing up. I've been like very, I guess, interested and curious about something. So like once I sort of gain an interest around something, I sort of like to know what's actually going on. I want to understand the different aspects and the different sort of moving parts of that sort of vehicle in this case, which is finance. So I just done like loads of insight, well, maybe not loads, but a couple insight days prior to the spring weeks to understand, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? Again, on a high level, on a very high level. And then the spring week dives you a bit deeper, then your intern dives you a bit deeper. So I guess there's like always sort of levels and always sort of information out there. And even prior to the insight days, I would have to like go out myself and sort of research what's going on here, what's in finance, what is finance, understand what is like the difference between buy side and sell side, all these different things where I think it can be overlooking and it can be seen as you don't have to do it, to be honest. You don't have to, but for me and myself personally, just out of curiosity, I wanted to understand and I did understand in the end, so that's good.
Yeah, no, 100%. And having a curiosity for something, just human nature, is it feels less like work when you're learning about it. And
Exactly.
something that
Exactly.
if something's not right for you, you have to force yourself to learn about it. It's always going to take that little bit longer or that little bit more effort to get into it. I did want to ask, were there any challenges you faced in convincing other people? So maybe you went into these spring weeks and there were students from finance backgrounds. Did you have any challenges when you were trying to convince them that you belonged in finance, or any challenges you faced when you were trying to convince yourself that you belonged in finance? What was that mindset shift like?
Yeah, it was, I'd say maybe the most asked question during all my interviews. I'd make jokes with it about my friends, but I just knew it was going to come up every interview. You study biomedical science, why finance? It was every single interview that I'd done, every single question. Anyone that I met, it was the same question. And which is like a valid question, to be fair. I would ask it to someone else as well. Um, but yeah, I think that was like the main, I guess, that challenge in a sense where it wasn't really much convincing. I just, like I've just explained to you guys, I told them like I've got like a couple of insights into finance and I'm really interested in it and I just want to learn more. At that stage, at the spring week stage, at this early stage, even now, you just want to learn more. You always want to understand what's going on here, what's going on there. So it's just honestly about learning and being able to develop yourself. So I knew within myself, I didn't really ever doubt myself. I knew that I guess the biomedical scientists and the science pathway wasn't for me quite early on. And I knew that I preferred something a bit more macro and a bit more macro driven, and finance was that for me. So I guess, yeah, when I was like answering those questions, I literally just explain my view, explain my point of view, said that, okay, I do study this, which again gives me, I guess, a thought of diversity and a different sort of way of thinking that I was going to approach challenges and problems that may be presented. But on the other side, it's literally just out of curiosity and I just want to learn sort of thing. So those were the main sort of things that I said. Once they understood where I was coming from and my point of view, there weren't many issues.
You know, which I mean, I guess makes sense as well because naturally, like even students who study maths like myself, like you there's still like a fair share of mathematics students, but um, you could say biomed's a bit less common. So it just makes sense where they come from. The fact that you've held that well is actually inspirational in a sense as well. But to kind of round off this section of the episode, then do you think there was like a moment that kind of clicked and then made you think, okay, you know what, finance is the industry for me?
Um, I wouldn't say a moment per se, to be honest with you. I'd say it was more like a collection of things. So there wasn't ever a point where I was learning about finance or my knowledge was increasing within finance and I said, oh, this may not be a thing for me or I may not actually be as interested in this as I thought I was. But the more I learned about the industry and the more I learned about what was going on, the more interested I got, sort of thing. So then that leads you to diving deeper and deeper. So I think that was, the I guess like a collection of things that happened, or like sort of the monopoly that happened for me to be more interested and for me to know that okay, this might be a career for me. When it got to the point where I was learning, but I wasn't getting to the end, there was always more and more and more to learn. And I think that's like one key thing for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think again, a very great way to end off that section. And we're speaking a lot. A lot of these sections overlap, which is what we love. And I think it's a great time to to go into the next section, which is actually the physical acts of breaking into the industry. So we're talking applications, internships, and of course a little bit about how you got to Blackrock. So I mean, I'm scrolling through your experiences on LinkedIn right this second, and I mean, you've got, as you said, Insight Days at Lazard, Insight Week at RBC, you were an intern at Macquarie, Spring intern at Deutsche, Spring intern at Credit Suisse, Summer intern at PwC, and then of course now you're a fixed income analyst at Blackrock. So can you talk us through these internships? Obviously there's a lot of them, so just kind of the major ones that you feel really shaped your understanding and furthered your kind of pursuance of finance as a whole.
Yeah, sure. Some of them were quite a while ago, so you'll have to forgive me.
Yeah.
But from what I remember, I think so. I done like a couple spring weeks. So I done one at BlackRock. Um, I done one at CS. I done one at DB, and the CS one was in. Well, what was CS? Was in person, and I think that one really helped me to understand the sell side sort of thing and helped me to understand what was going on in the market, IBD, sort of the different divisions there. And it sort of, I guess, opened up my eyes when I was lucky that I got multiple sort of spring weeks, so I could compare the spring weeks within asset management to the spring weeks within like the banking side. And I could see where I sort of thought like I felt more like it was a bit more natural to me to fit in. It was a bit more at home for me to fit in, sort of thing. And I think that was like just asset management for me in that situation. Um, just because of the nature of how the things, it might have been like nothing to me at the time, but just because of like the nature of how like things were run, what I was learning about, and it was just almost like a gut feeling that okay, I definitely prefer this. Let me just stick to what I prefer to. Obviously, like thankfully I did pick the CS one. It would have been a bit difficult. Would have been a bit difficult, but yeah, it was just like little things like that that just made me sort of decide, okay, cool. I can sort of gauge what's going on in the different parts of the industry, and I feel like the buy side's a bit more for me, sort of thing. So I'll just like lean more towards there.
Okay, perfect. And then now jumping to BlackRock, then now could you walk us through the application process you went through for your current role?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think about the process when I was so when I obviously I applied for a spring week. I think I applied within like fixed income, but you don't apply for like a specific seat or a specific role or anything. Obviously, a spring week's like very broad, very general. So I done that. I think it was just like maybe like a video interview and then like maybe a couple other interviews after that. Um, yeah, so I done that, and then like thankfully I got into that spring week there. And after our spring week, there's like a some people do like a presentation or something. For us, it was like a conversion interview sort of thing. So I spoke to like someone from the floor. They like interviewed me, and then thankfully, like a few weeks later, I was told that I got my summer internship. Um, After the internship, it is a case of you just do like maybe like your internship project. Some people have exit interviews. It works differently in like each role, each function, each division, and it works differently firm to firm. But I was informed that after my internship project that like I was offered a role back here. Um, and yeah, that's more or less how it worked.
Amazing. I actually didn't. I forgive our lack of research, but we didn't know that you worked all the way from spring to summer to a grad role, which is amazing. Conversions are always very tough, and of course in this market, and it's what's the word I'm looking for? A firm's got to really believe in you to guarantee you a role after university, because anything can change in that final year. So I was gonna ask you, what do you think made your application stand out? But now that I know that you've worked your way from spring to summer to grad role, what do you think made you as a person stand out for them to consistently call you back over three different stages of an early careers process?
I think it's probably like just my curiosity and my like willingness to learn sort of thing. Like I've mentioned throughout the episodes, I just always want to learn and always understand and always want to learn more. And if you're thinking about it from, I guess, the employer's point of view, for someone who's coming in as a grad, like from university, like they have to be able to learn. They have to be able to want to understand what's going on because you're not going to be expected to be an expert straight away. You have like loads of years ahead of you. But the only way that you can get to that expert stage or that stage where you feel like you're comfortable in a sense is by learning and continuing to learn for years and years and years on end. Because like people even above me, like my manager, even telling me like he's still learning at his stage. So like it's a case of you just gonna keep on learning, keep on growing, keep on developing because you never almost like get to a stage where you've completed it or like you know everything. That's impossible. But the only way you can sort of, I guess, work your way through and like guarantee yourself, put yourself in the best position is by continuing to learn in all different situations, I think.
That's such a great answer. Never reach a level of entitlement where you think you can't learn anything more. That's I really like that. I think that's going to go in the trailer of the episode actually.
But but yeah, then I guess kind of like on that note, then so and I'm attacking at this again, but you were a biomed student, and then in that sense, there must have been occasions where you were networking. Maybe that was during the spring internship, during maybe the summer internship. So, how did you go about that and find like a connection whilst being someone who's not from the traditional route? If you could understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do understand. And to be honest, I'm not the best. Well, some people are like great, like networkers intentionally. I'm not like the best sort of networker, I would say. Because yeah, I don't know. It's just like I'm just not maybe not a fan. I am a fan of networking events, but I'm like I do struggle sometimes myself to like even I guess make the most out of those events. So like for me personally, it's just like very natural. Like when things come along, they come along sort of thing. If you're speaking to someone and you get along, you get along. If you don't feel like you get along, you don't get along. Like I don't think it's possible to get along with everyone on earth sort of thing. Um, but I guess with that sort of networking aspect, it's more about positioning yourself again in the best place to be able to potentially gain an opportunity. But opportunities don't just hand themselves to you. You've got to like put yourself in that place and put yourself in that position. Um, but these opportunities are just all more or less like learning opportunities for me and opportunities to grow for me. So that's like what I see as sort of thing. And I don't restrict myself to oh, maybe I've already spoken to that person, or maybe I think I'm not interested in that person's role, so I'm not going to speak to them anymore. But I'll try to understand more about the role, more about maybe their career, more about how their role could potentially tie into another role, how they work with other teams and other divisions. So I feel like just not being maybe like very um tunnel visioned and be having like a broad sort of way of thinking. I think that's just what I take into like networking events and when I'm networking. Obviously, I was lucky to have like things like Prosper Warwick as well, where you can meet like so many different people through the events that you put on. You can meet like different corporates, different companies there. Even the university students don't underestimate like how wide your network is within your peers as well, because your peers will have like so many opportunities for you that you may have not known about. But when you bring like a group like Prosper Warwick together, like you then start to speak about those opportunities and those things that may come up. So I feel like, yeah, just being myself, to be honest, and letting those opportunities come along. Or what is what I did for networking.
Yeah. No, amazing. And I try and not avoid, but I don't prefer networking events that much. I'm similar to yourself. Don't get me wrong. I can talk to people, but then I think for me, the issue, and I think Naman kind of similar. The issue is making the conversation valuable to not only myself but to the person speaking to, making sure, in a way, we can both come out of that conversation having learned something, that sort of thing. So it is tough sometimes, and there is a lot of onus on the student community to actually do that successfully. And it is a skill at the end of the day, especially when you get into a client-facing role. If you get into a client-facing role, again, I'm going to come a little bit back to the conversion. So, how technical were the interviews from? You said presentation from like spring to summer, and then you said there were like some interviews at the process. But then summer to grad, what were it? How technical was that? How much technical knowledge did you have to brush up on? How did you overcome those gaps in your technical knowledge when you were trying to chase this conversion at Blackrock and other applications as well?
So with my summer to grad, it was a presentation that I had to do, and because like my summer and I'm currently like working within fixed income is quite a technical asset class in itself, and there are like many sort of aspects in which you sort of need to get a grasp with, which is very difficult for a spring and even very difficult for a summer as well. Even now as a grad, it's difficult. So I feel like it's just about being able to like research. You're gonna hear like loads of terms, loads of jargon. Being able to like go away in your own time and search what those up, but not just the Google definition or not just the definition that you get on Wikipedia or anything. Just like understanding what, for example, if you're searching up like a bond, not understanding what a bond is, but understanding how a bond works. Excuse me. Understanding how a bond works, understanding the different aspects of a bond, the different types of bonds, sort of thing. Just sort of understanding deeper layers into what that definition is, not just the definition, but how the definition works and how it ties into the context that you heard it in. I think there's like so many aspects that you can research. You can do like a lazy research and a quick type up and be like, okay, that's that. Or you could do like I guess, maybe like even a 5 minute research to understand the different moving parts around that specific definition or that specific word, I should say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes complete sense. And then kind of continuing on from that. So, and to kind of round off the section as well, is there any advice you could give to someone trying to break in like from a non like financy degree where they need to build up on that knowledge themselves? Is there any advice you can give?
Yeah, I'd say just firstly, don't, I guess, doubt yourself thinking that you're from a non-finance background, so you're at a disadvantage. Almost see it as an advantage because you're coming in with like a different sort of POV and a different way of thinking and style of thinking. Also, come in eager and willing to learn as well because you're gonna have everyone has to learn, but coming in from a non-finance background, you just have that small little gap that you gotta close even more sort of thing. So just come in eager to learn, put in the work, and in the end, like by the end of your internship, odds are the person who comes from a finance degree and the person who comes from a non-finance degree, their level of technical knowledge will probably be level at the end of it. So it's about yourself and how you put yourself out there and how willing you are to sort of understand the jargon and the technicals and the stuff that goes around it.
Hmm. Yeah, 1,000,000%. And about, as you said, the different perspective. As I said, the industry has changed for the better, and that people and that firms do what's the word I'm looking for? Value that different perspective now, which is amazing. And of course, you can always specialize into different teams. Like I know someone that does engineering at Imperial, and he wants to go into industrials and stuff like that. That where his dissertation is around that sort of team. So he's really excited to go into that because he's got that actual practical perspective and experience through university, despite coming from a non-finance background. As Naman said, we're going to round off this section. I'm actually going to switch around the structure a little bit. We were supposed to go on to your day-to-day as an analyst, but I'm going to save that a little bit later. You mentioned Prosper Warwick, and it's something I really want to get into because me and Naman are so passionate about social impact, especially at the university level. So I'm going to literally just ask such a general question, but what inspired you to found Prosper Warwick, and what actually is it for our listeners that don't know?
Yeah, sure. So Prosper Warwick is a society at Warwick which has an aim to sort of empower and help young students from like ethnic minorities to access and break into different industries. The sort of inspiration and the vision comes from my mentoring back at Badu. So at Badu in East London, what they sort of done was mentor me, and we had that sort of peer mentoring circle that we had there where we could learn off each other and develop each other and push each other and motivate each other. That's where the sort of, I guess, idea and the sort of creation of Prosper Warwick came from. So once we came into university environment and we realized there wasn't anything like this here, or some things that we learned from Badu that we thought was almost common knowledge and everyone knew, so the majority of our friends at university didn't know and didn't understand. We said, okay, there's like something that needs to be done here. So I came together with a couple of friends, and then we eventually founded Prosper Warwick. What we sort of aimed to do was help young black students to access these different areas. And to once they accessed it, we wanted them to drive change and to thrive in these environments. So it's not just about getting in and then forgetting everything else, but you want to get in and then you want to drive change within the environment to help people who have not like got access to those opportunities to gain access to the opportunities, and you want to thrive in those environments as well. So putting yourself in the best position to be able to succeed and to be able to do well in those environments. Um, so yeah, we came together, we created it, we sort of created different arms where we said there's like a finance focus group, there's like a law focus group, there's like a science focus group, there's like a creative focus group. So we're sort of focusing on, there's a tech focus group as well, focusing on the different arms of careers where we think the majority of people are likely to go into sort of encompass everyone. And I feel like, yeah, just almost whilst I was there, it was a great community. Go there with friends, you can like have a couple snacks, but also learn how to break into these different industries, have some conversations that you may not have elsewhere, or something that you may not have elsewhere. Even like simple things like office etiquette, like what to wear in the office, how to dress in the office, just like some simple things that some people may overlook, or those conversations you may not have if you didn't have like a group like that. I think Prosper Warwick like provides a great opportunity for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I understand the excitement behind it as well, because I mean, may not be directly similar, but it is similar in some sense as well. Me and Ali starting this podcast, I mean, we've slowly snowballed into an organization, and with that, we see there's like a community out there who watches our videos, learns from our videos, and knowing that you can help them is I guess very rewarding in its own sense. But then a question I want to ask you is that it probably wasn't easy actually setting something up like this. So could you describe what challenges you faced whilst creating this organization, and then how did you deal with them?
Challenge. For us to start the challenges, we'd be here for hours. We'd be here for hours. Everything was a challenge, to be honest, from just starting it to getting people to come to promoting it on campus, because the thing was to even executing the vision in the first place, because what I struggled with was that I had a vision and I had a great team, but it was how I could help my team to execute that vision in a sense where their vision for it might have been slightly different to mine. So in that case, we all have to come together and see what's the best vision for Prosper in the end. So it's just like so many different moving parts, and being in this case, like I'm almost, I guess, I'm leading my peers, I'm leading my friends, sort of thing, in this situation, which can be like an awkward dynamic to manage at times. But what was great was that my friends and myself, we all like didn't take it too seriously. We all didn't like get on top of each other. If someone had an idea that contradicted another person's idea, what we'll do was we'll come together and we'll see what was the best for Prosper in the end. Always putting like Prosper first and not ourselves or maybe our egos or maybe our prides on the line, but always Prosper first. Um, I think those are the main things. And the second one was getting people to understand what Prosper was. When you're a society, especially a new society that hasn't been done before, we have to like go to the student union and get us set up officially and stuff like that. When it hasn't been done before, loads of people are a bit sort of, well, which is fair enough, like a bit wary, a bit like, what's going on? What's this? You're giving us all this like free information and like sort of free game and great knowledge, but like, what do you want back from me? And like, are you gonna charge me? What's the
Yeah,
catch, sort
yeah.
of thing? But what it was that which were literally just trying to help people. There was no catch. There is no catch. There's nothing, no strings attached, sort of thing. We come, you gain knowledge, you gain insight, you gain a community, and if you want, you can leave, but you sort of there's nothing that we're gonna charge. There's no exit fee. There's nothing like that. It's just literally what it is. It's just us trying to help the community, a community we've grown up in, and trying to build that community.
Yeah. No, I love that. And as a symptom of all that hard work you put in, as you said, prosper first, it was, as I'm sure you now realize looking back, hindsight is a powerful thing, but that was corporate character development. You were learning collaboration, you were learning leadership, you were learning, as you said, admin, going to student union and stuff like this, which is why me and Naman, we always preach, and I guess always preach on all of our episodes and outside of the episodes as well, is to all students do something that differentiates you from other students, launch something, and you realize that the more that you give out, you'll end up getting back. You know, karma's a beautiful thing. There's a few more questions I want to ask on this section, actually, as you can tell, we are passionate about it. So first of all, it's that kind of a double barrel question. So how did the Warwick community respond to the initiative when it first launched? And then how did you and your team define a successful impact in that social mobility space?
Yeah, great questions actually. I think the Warwick community, well, responded well actually, to be honest, because there was great turnout every week. People wanted to know, people wanted to learn, and obviously in Warwick as well, there's such like because it's a campus-based university, there's like words gets around so quickly, and people sort of hear about things, and especially like when you're in first year and you're in second year, people hear about things very quickly, and people are always intrigued. People want to know what's going on here, and we got like loads of support, loads of backing, which was so great. When we needed, like for example, you need like a minimum amount of sign-ups to be able to be like officially recognized by the student union, and we smashed through the barrier when we requested that, so that was like amazing. Turned out every session again, like I said, it was amazing. We had like sometimes 30, 40, 50 people per week per session, which is like crazy numbers for people who have just begun. Um, but yeah, it was really good. And in terms of my team defining the best sort of impact, it was just like what we saw it as was one person at a time, one what like change one life at a time is what we sort of saw it as. So when we're defining these sort of things of impact, when we're looking at the end of the year, we're seeing the numbers that we're getting, and we're seeing in our first year, 75% of our mentees getting accepted into spring weeks or summer internships or some sort of work experience. We're like, wow. But at the beginning, when we're working through it, we don't see it as that. We just see it as I'm trying to help this person who's sometimes my age, maybe just a year younger, gets into a place that I've just broken into basically. So it's a bit difficult sometimes when all the questions come through. You may not have all the answers, but all you can do in that situation is help others so they can help you in the end. So that's just what we were doing.
Yeah, and this that kind of reminds me of when me and Ali we went to Aston University, and we gave this talk on how to improve your personal branding and whatnot. And like I was the first year giving advice to second year students, and then it was just like, okay, like yeah, I've done my podcast and everything, I've got to gain insights, but can I really deliver that? So yeah, there was that awkward dynamic. But I think that does perfectly finish off this section. So, and I'd love to jump into your day to day without going into too many specifics. So you're a fixed income analyst at BlackRock within the European team. So what does a role at BlackRock actually involve? On what does your role at BlackRock actually involve, and what does your day to day look like?
Yeah, I think this is like the worst question that I could get, or just like general, just analysts in general. I think we hate this question because even everyone in general, because when I used to listen to people say this, I hated it so much. But generally, every day is different.
Yeah,
Sorry to like
yeah.
say the same thing, but
No, no, no.
generally,
Yeah.
every day is different. What I can say that like stays throughout days would be like just, I guess, getting into office. When I'm in the office, I have like a sort of a to-do list, maybe like a weekly to-do list, but then also broken down into daily and a monthly, if I have like my monthly tasks as well. On that, I'll like check it every morning, update it to see if I've completed anything the last night or if I need to, what I need to focus on per se. Obviously, you'll have a look at your email, see if there's like any requests from clients to see what's urgent, to see what you need to work on in a sense. Communicate within the team. You'll have like your weekly team meetings and stuff, and you'll have like your daily meetings, where like there will be like updates on markets and updates on macro environment, what's going on in the fixed income universe and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I'd say that's about it. So if we're talking numbers, I'll probably usually get in around 8 a.m. every day. I'll probably be out by around like 6 every day, six, half six every day. Um, and yeah, then I'm going home and having dinner and stuff like that, and then just resetting for the next day, to be honest.
No, that's super real, and our listeners do appreciate that. And yeah, you're right, we do hear that a lot, but we've got to ask it as the introduction question to the section. I'm actually going to ask a question that's a bit different. We don't actually have it written down either, but we have a lot of sixth formers, a lot of first years, a lot of, as you said, as we talked about, non-finance students listen to the podcast who just want to gain an insight into various careers. So how would you explain what you do and fixed income, like that field, to these students who are early on in their careers?
Yeah, sure. So I'd explain fixed income as, I guess, you could say it's the market for borrowing if we're really trying to break it down. So it's more of like a lens. I owe you, and you say you'll pay me back, but you'll pay me back in increments, sort of things. So that's how it sort of went. So like, let's say for example, I need a loan or I need some money, and then you give me that money, but and I say, cool. When you give me that money, you say, okay, you have to pay it all back today, you have to pay it all back tomorrow. You can pay it back slowly in increments. But I'm not just gonna give you that money and receive the same money back. You're gonna want a bit of interest on top of it because you're giving me your money. So that's sort of like what the transactions look like, is more of like a, you give me a loan, I'm paying you back in increments, but within that increments, there's almost a bit on top as well. So like that's, I guess, the sort of how as explaining at the lowest.
Yeah. No, that was perfect, to be honest. That's exactly what I was looking for, yeah.
Yeah, but then of course I assume that they don't teach fixed income in your biomed course at Warwick. So how did you go about learning this? And then maybe is there like a skill you had to develop quickly for your current role?
Um, I think, like I mentioned prior, is just mainly through start like researching things that I've heard before, the insight days, the spring weeks, the summer. There's no quick way to learn it, to be honest with you. It's like I'm still learning as a grad now, so there's definitely no quick way to learn it. It's a case of just like trying to understand bit by bit when things come up. Um, so yeah, I think that's really it, to be honest. I can't say there's a cheat code. I can't say there's a skill. I think it's just trying to understand as your journey goes on, and don't rush it as well. Don't try and understand everything quickly. It's a case of you just have to like, once it comes, try and slow down and really understand it and don't skip steps or skip levels.
Yeah. Now, at the end of the day, it's hard graft, and you got to put that in, especially
100%.
at the start of your sort of journey. What's your team like, Esmond? Is it a large institutional team? Do you have like small pockets that you work in? What's that dynamic sort of like?
Yeah, so I think we have like so our team obviously is the Euro team, and we're broken up into like portfolio managers and product strategists. And how that team works is, I wouldn't say too large, maybe a team of around 20 sort of people. And then obviously you're broken up into strategists, which I'm a strategist, and then the portfolio managers who like do the day-to-day running of the fund, where the strategists might have a bit more focus on client content, what's coming in from clients, etc., etc. Um, so yeah, that's just mainly how it's broken up into. Obviously, we work closely within each other with each other, but I'll do my day-to-day work with the strategist.
Fair enough. But then, say, so of course, I assume you did your summer internship within this team, right? So when you were learning, what was the most, I guess, the biggest thing that stood out to you, or the biggest challenge you faced? And it's a bit of a repetitive question, but what was the biggest challenge you faced then?
It was mainly just learning and trying to understand fixed income and trying to understand the markets, to be honest, because like I said, it's a very like technical asset class and there's so many things going on and so many different moving parts. Just trying to get to grips with all of that in the first place, I would say is definitely the biggest challenge because once you understand a bit, there's just always something else that comes and there's always another thing that comes. And that was like probably the most annoying part about my summer internship that once I felt like I got it and understood, and I'd go to my manager and say, okay, cool, I understand this, this, and that, then she'll just like reveal to me like, oh no, there's actually this there, and then there's actually that there. I'll be like, oh, okay, so there's more and there's more, which like it taught me a lesson that I'm not gonna understand fixed income within this internship. I'm not gonna understand the whole thing just within this internship. There's a long journey of understanding, and you just gotta keep on learning and don't like I guess try and fight your ego trying to understand everything straight away because it's just like not possible. You just gotta take your time and understand it slowly but properly.
Yeah, and of course you don't want to be in a role where learning is limited. When you can almost complete, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, I've completed that. Do you know what I mean? You want to always want to be learning. I'm kind of off the back of that question, and probably one of the final questions of this section. What surprised you the most then about working in fixed income, especially when you got into a full time role? What was something that you like? Oh, I didn't expect this.
Surprised. To be honest, I would say surprised maybe how much we actually like how I'll say how broad and the depth of like fixed income and like how it works sort of thing. So because it's like so macro focus, I didn't understand the level of detail within the macro focus or the level of politics that can affect fixed income assets. I didn't really understand that literally everything that goes into the world and everything that's going on, every like news headline and stuff like that, in one way or another will affect an asset. So I think that surprised me a lot. The fact that you have to keep up with like global news and news that you may have not thought that, oh, it's just like nothing. No, it really affects some things in some way.
Yeah. Okay. And your response about fixed income in general, it's reminding me of when I did my spring week at BNP. There was this training session, and the topic of like fixed income and just bonds. There was just question answer between us and the training provider, and it just went on for like a good 2-3 hours, and we still didn't get, of course, cover everything. It's very complex but interesting at the same time. But I think that does conclude that section of this episode, and we are on the last section of this episode right now. Bittersweet, but a lot of great content and gold nuggets for our viewers and listeners, and for me and Ali as well. So we look forward to looking back on this. But then, so your plans for the future, what are they, and what does your future look like within the fixed income team?
Difficult question to be honest. Plans, because like I've mentioned like prior, how I've literally, I guess, lived my life was, well, thus far has been really, hasn't been like a set plan or a set 5 year plan, a set 10-year plan. It's just been a case of me sort of learning and looking to grow in like whatever environment I'm in. And that's what I'll continue to do because it's like come out well and it's played me well. So I think just continuing to grow and continue to learn and being in an environment and a position in which I can learn and grow myself, I think that's the first and number one. So that's just more or less my plan. And I guess whilst I'm learning, being able to, I guess, execute on a efficient scale as well and on a accurate scale as well, because there's no point in learning but not being able to execute what you've learned in a sense, or not being able to apply what you've learned is probably a better way of putting it. So being able to apply that knowledge accurately is another key thing for me.
Yeah, that's a very, very transparent answer, and I love that. Sometimes we do get guests that say, "Oh yeah, I want to do this in the next 2 years," and it's not. Life doesn't always work like that. So you sometimes just got to go with the flow. So just learning to keep learning, as you said, is great. So as Naman said, it is bittersweet. Last three questions that we asked to every guest, and it's been such a great episode. So I'm gonna kick things off. So looking back on your career journey so far, Esmond, what are you most proud of?
Oh, it's a very short career journey so far, to be honest with you. What am I most proud of? I'd say I'd say sometimes I guess, developed or shown a bit of resilience that I didn't really think. Well, yeah, I didn't really think I always had in me, sort of thing. Sometimes, I guess, when it gets tough, I didn't. I surprised myself with how deep I dug, sort of thing, in those situations where I didn't give up initially, or maybe I was working hard and the solution didn't come straight away, but I have to work even harder and harder in that sense. And in those situations, usually sometimes I'll be like, oh, forget this, like this is annoying, like nothing's gonna come from it. But like as of recently, I've been again when the first solution has come, I always know I'm working towards something and there's gonna be a solution in the end. So I haven't like stopped at the first sort of hurdle or the second hurdle, but maybe the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and I just keep on going through until there is something. And being able to even ask for help as well, like one thing I've yet to mention, but is so, so crucial. Just like the ability to sometimes you may be stuck and you may need a hand, just ask sometimes. Because I've had like probably a bit being a bit stubborn and want to do it yourself and you want to tackle the problem yourself. But sometimes you literally just need a bit of help, and that's fine to accept as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great piece of advice and great for like uh, mindset for me and Ali and our views to be put in. But then, question number two then. So, if if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Ah, don't support Man United.
No, no, don't say that, please.
No, I'm kidding. If I could give him a piece of advice, it would probably just to, I guess, like just keep your head down, do as you're doing, and like just keep on listening to the people around you. Because I was lucky enough to find a great group of friends who have like been keeping me on my feet, keeping my head down, making sure that I'm constantly working, making sure that they're keeping me up to the standards that I've set for myself and we've set for ourselves as a collective. So just keep on doing that. I think I've like thus far, thankfully to like my parents, my family, and my friends, I've like made great choices in life, and just don't sway off path and just keep on making those good choices.
Yeah, such a great answer. I'm tempted to cut out that first one, but I think I'll leave it on.
Yeah.
But last question again. It's been such a great episode. So, in your opinion, what's the biggest takeaway you hope our viewers, listeners, our audience, just in general, get from your story, your personal journey so far?
I'd say maybe a few. Firstly, help others without any expectations, without wanting any help, because you eventually realize that once you help others without expectations, you grow yourself so much more because there's not a focus on I give you what you giving me, but it's almost a sense of I give you without expecting anything back. But within yourself, you grow so much from that. And that's how opportunities come your way as well, because naturally people want to help you back eventually if you're not almost forcing them and holding them by the scruff of the neck to like help you back initially. I'd say that's number one. I'd say for number two, almost, I'd say just keep on learning. I've said it throughout the whole episode. I've said it constantly. Keep on learning, keep on asking questions. Some people hesitate to ask questions because it may feel like they're lacking the knowledge or they don't know what's going on. But the more questions you ask, the more you learn, the better you get. It's a simple formula, it's a simple solution. It's just that easy and that simple. And number three, I'd say just keep a good group of friends around you. Like I've been lucky enough to have a great group of friends around me from a young age, and I've grown up with them, and they've seen like we've all become what we've become, but we never lose our heads and we never lose our ground and we never lose ourselves. And like whether that be faith, whether that be our mission, whether that be our goal, we never lose that. So I think just keep a good group of friends around you. You keep you grounded, you keep you humble, and you'll do fine. You'll do fine.
Yeah. It all works out in the end. That is, if you're going to end an episode, that's how you do it. What a great way to end it. Esmond, it's been such a privilege to speak to you for almost an hour. It's been amazing. I know our viewers and listeners are going to appreciate the gold nuggets in this episode, as me and Naman did. We've learned so much, not just about how to be successful, but of course about fixed income as well, which we did learn too, but just a little bit. As you said, it is very broad. But for our listeners and viewers, we hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you are watching us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, surely Esmond's given you a good reason to subscribe. There'll be more podcast episodes like this coming to the show very, very soon. And if you are listening to us on an audio platform, you can do the same. You can follow us and you can drop a comment on either platform to let us know if there's someone we should speak to that we haven't spoken to yet, or a topic we should be covering that we haven't covered yet on the podcast. And of course, please do follow us on our social media platforms where we post about events, places we're going to speak at, and internship opportunities that are arising within our very own team at the Smart Money Show. But as always, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of the Smart Money Show. Please stay tuned and take care.